Greetings and bienvenue, Midnight Crew. Thank you for returning to this broadcast. And welcome to new viewers joining us for the first time. If you like a video, then feel free to subscribe.
True terror stories. Nowadays, we sadly live in an era where terror is generally manufactured and therefore absolute false. Generally, it's always some kind of ARG, which creates an oversaturation of fakeness. This means fake stories, creepypastas, and more, whereas only a form of cheap and safe entertainment, like a rigged game, a rigged fight. Everything is fake and everyone is an actor. The new spectators think of this as the truth, but the veterans? They know this is fake, yet they still consume. So then what makes true terror? Veracity, simpleness, and devoid of fame-seekness. In other words, sincerity. For example, over-elaborated stories where you can prove effectively its fakeness through having a sharp eye. Stories where its objective is to be the new scary story of the internet. When you see an actual ghost, haunted item, etc., you can sense that sensation of something is off here. Something that would make even the most skeptical man to be afraid, or at least have an odd feeling. That feeling of fuck off, I'm not going there. So why am I writing this? Easy. I want to hear some true terror stories of the paranormal, where the veracity is believable, or at least the I can't decide either. In other words, the ambiguity of the veracity.
I am not schizo. I was trying to sue the police department for criminal negligence a month ago. I'm not anymore. Last week, talking on the phone with the police, a lady whose voice I heard before. She asked me a lot of questions, especially if we had any weapons in the house. And just like the night before, I told her we had no weapons but a sword in its sheath. Like the night before when people were inside my house. We said we would not use it on the police. Please come. She stayed on the line with me forever, like 20 minutes. I told her multiple times there were people outside, which I saw out there in spooky clothes. The police would not come. I don't think I was talking to the police. I think I was talking to someone who rerouted the call. Finally, she asked me, "Do you hear any sounds like knocking?" And then someone lightly knocked on my door and I said, "Yes, someone just knocked on my door right now." And she said nothing. My phone died. The police didn't come for over an hour, and they didn't clear my house even though there was a broken window. They took me straight to the ER. There were 2 men on either side of me in the psych ER. They kept coughing. I started talking to them because I was concerned they would get up and break my neck. I let them know they could speak to me in Morse code like they were to one another. When I asked if they wanted to make a deal for my life, they said nothing, which means no. If I asked if they were going to kill me, they coughed, which means yes. I talked to them over and over again, trying to convince them not to do what they were trying to do. I let them know that security was waiting right outside the door and they wouldn't be able to break everyone's necks on time. This kept the staff on their toes. Maybe it was all in my head, but one of the times that I asked if they accepted the deal not to kill me. The one on my left side said, "No," in a very creepy, light voice. I know this was not a hallucination. I was on no drugs. So I went on until the staff chained down one of my legs and one of my arms. I let them know that I could still do a defensive position with my free arm, and that they wouldn't break my neck before the staff responded to them coming into my room, and they couldn't break the staff's 2 necks in time to let themselves out, and that there was a group of good people outside the hospital to catch them anyways. They started to say yes to my deal and coughed when I said it. Then they snored as if they were asleep, but I stayed up until I was given an injection against my will. But I woke up the next day with my neck not broken. Maybe it was in my head, but I had to act the way I did to protect myself. It kept me from being discharged, and I was moved into a hospital within a mental hospital where I almost died. However, I escaped, so I wouldn't change a thing.
That story reminds me of one time back in 2001 when I called the non-emergency police dispatcher line about a hazardous road condition that was potentially deadly. Lengthy story. To make a long story short, the police dispatcher concluded that I was a nutcase who fabricated this story. She might have also concluded that I made this story up in order to get the police to drive by and notice the property of a business adjacent to the road that was severely violating the city's codes. with junk spread across the property, and a makeshift hut made out of discarded materials for a homeless man. I was not concerned about the junky business property at all, just the hazardous road condition. She could not understand how the situation that I described could exist. But in the end, you can't tell people anything, you can only show them. And even then, the police might have thought that I was the one who created the road hazard. It was merely 3 orange cones that were blocking one lane of a 2-lane road going in 2 directions with no passing allowed. And to top it off, no construction workers were directing traffic, and a crazy homeless man was intently watching the situation from a short distance. When the police finally arrived at the scene about 5 hours later, traffic was backed up as an accident probably occurred. If your story is true, the police probably think you are a nutcase. Other people may have already complained to the police about you without your knowledge, even though their side of the story is fabricated and malicious. The police may have also concluded that you were the one who broke the window. Perhaps it would have been better to simply take pictures of those people in spooky clothes. It sounds like they were trying to harass you, especially if they were the ones who broke the window. Maybe it would be better to consult a lawyer the next business day with the photographs before proceeding to call the police.
There was a creepy guy, or something mostly like one, in my neighborhood growing up, who was never caught as far as I know. This is unusual in terms of an affluent suburb, but it's somewhat of a collection of stories from myself and things I heard from others. Not sure if it'd be worth typing them out, but if you've got any interest, I'll start green-texting them. I'll warn you that it was ultimately anticlimactic, but that at least to me, the way it fizzles into the history of my life without conclusion is creepier. Anyway, it all started like this. On a morning bus ride, 7th grade or so, probably 2006. Stop for a brother and sister. Brother my age, and his sister is a year older than us. She isn't with him. Hey, why isn't girl with you? Story as relayed by him. Sister was home alone the day before. Knock at the sliding glass door that was the back door to home. Man with gun there, dressed in all black. She can't give a description. He tries to persuade the girl to both let him in and for her to come out. She does neither. Rattled so badly she was taking a sick day. At this point, there was a big neighborhood discussion about her potentially being a liar. Then rumors spread among kids that adults in the neighborhood were answering their doors with guns and talk of a general peeping Tom. Everything's still mundane here, but they do accelerate. Best friend growing up was Native. Native bro and I see signs for a corny neighborhood hot dog social. From our true crime television expertise, we develop a theory. He will show up because he was proud. He would be alone and not socialize before leaving. Day comes. Man there as predicted, almost to a T. Tell adults, adults don't care. This continued on. The presumption that a peeping Tom lives in the neighborhood now. This continued for about 2 years, pretty much just with adults on high alert and a guy seen peeking in windows. Next story is a creepy one, I promise. Be in my kitchen chilling with mom and grandma. Nice summer day, kitchen windows open. Look over at some point and there is a man, standing in the window looking at us, with his face pressed to the screen such that his nose was all smashed up. Grandma screams. Mom looks at him and says, "I'm going to kick your ass. Nice mom, badass." She grabs tactical bow staff from her bedroom because post-divorce boyfriend was a karate instructor, runs out the front door, around the side of the house. Grandma is closely following, yelling, "Lisa, he's gonna kill you." Mom chases the man but loses him between backyard fences. Rattled, but again we knew a weird dude was out there. Go to bed and wake up in the morning. 2 Parliament cigarette butts laid perfectly parallel on that same window from last night. Weren't there before? He came back to stare in the window more, smoked cigs and left them as a message. Little bit more time has passed. I'm 14 now. Family is weird, outwardly normal, but mom is crazy. She buys me cigarettes and lets me smoke even at that age. So I spend a lot of time in my backyard, fenced, at night smoking and thinking. One night I got a weird feeling like I should run to my door. Strange. I like esoteric things, so I start looking around instead of immediately giving in to urge. At the neighbor's house, up against the house in the shadows, there's a man in a dark sweatshirt, pressed to the wall hiding from me in my porch light, looking at me. Ice runs through my legs and freeze now. Run back inside and don't call the police because of underage smoking. Dumb, I know. Bit of time passes. Normal people start getting stopped for walking around at night in the neighborhood. Happened to me once. Cops only wanted to make sure I wasn't creepy guy, but didn't care about anything else. I tell them the story from before now. They say they heard from everyone that he was fast, and that he seems to know the layout of every fence in the neighborhood. They don't seem to exist to him. He's even been seen vaulting them like nothing at all. Sightings are growing more common. Now people see him looking into the windows of other houses. Cops cannot catch this guy. Can't stress enough that this is an affluent suburb with a well-funded police department. It's weird. Everyone thinks so. Even the cops. Police are becoming more aggressive with support from the community, but still no results. Lots of short 1 or 2 liner stories from pretty much everyone in the neighborhood during this time, but a few more stories. Be the last time I saw him personally. I am 19 now and pissed at Mom. Storming off to the car to leave and go to Dad's house. Familiar haunted feeling. My car is parked on the street between houses, and as I am walking to it, the creep appears between my house and the next. Same window as the first story. He is racing me to my car. Run. Get there and drive away without looking back. Do not call Mom and warn her. Last story here. Don't talk to Mom anymore. But my little sister tells me this in her recall when talking about the creepy guy one day as adults. Be after I left. Be Mom, bedroom right next to front door. She has severe OCD, classic lock checker. Anyway, she's sleeping one night, she recalled to my sister, and woke up to this weird dream that a man was standing over her bed with a butcher knife raised above his head. Wakes up. That was weird. Front door is unlocked when she leaves the bedroom, hanging ajar. She tells family she thinks it was me. Family keeps it from me at the time to avoid upsetting me further. Anon is mad but would never do something like that. This was quite true. I was pissed but not nearly murderously. Mom believes them. But then, who was Knife? After that, my mom moved in with her karate boyfriend outside that neighborhood, and I had no reason to go back. He was never caught. I can't really describe the unusual terror I felt each time I saw this guy, but OP reminded me of the feeling. Sinister in a way I haven't felt since. Fences didn't exist to him. Police dogs never actually found him. Cops were openly pissed that some random man was so fast and immaterial that they couldn't catch him for shit. Just overall, a really, really fucking weird situation with no satisfying conclusion. Guarantee. Everyone from the neighborhood remembers it very clearly, though.
Well, if kid things are included, I have 2. Be me. Very small child, just learned to speak, sitting on Mom's lap and start telling her about the end of the world. Only quote my mum can remember to this day. And the white horses, they come from the clouds, Mum. I was apparently very emphatic and sure of all this. No recollection of this myself for obvious reasons. The other, paternal great-grandma dies. Go to the funeral. Too young to really get funeral. People are very sad, spiritually sensitive person, so I'm uncomfortable here without understanding the reason. Ask to go outside. Sure anon. Outside of building, church, funeral home, I don't know. Sitting under this pretty weeping willow, the wind is blowing peacefully through the tree, and I enjoy sipping this thing of grape juice I had for some reason. Looking around and noticing the beauty of the noise and sights at the same time. Probably my very first experience with the profound beauty of nature. Very oddly serene for childhood experience. I am a high-energy person, so for me to have been doing this alone, and so quietly, was factually unusual. Lost in this, don't really remember anything but sitting, chilling. Family comes out after the service. You good, Anon? Yeah, I was just sitting here while Grandma told me about the trees. Don't remember saying that, but family likes to tell this story for obvious reasons. Thanks for the peaceful time, Grandma. I hope you sat with me because you didn't like the sadness either.
This reminds me, something that happened to me when I was 16. Be me. It's afternoon like 6 p.m., coming back home alongside Father. We enter our building and we see a man entering the elevator. It's okay entering too. There's no one inside. My dad saw the same. Sudden chills. Yep. We took the stairs instead. Kind of short, kind of anecdotal, but I did freak out. Now another story related to my building. This happened years ago, when I was a newborn. Parents decide to rent out the apartment. A couple decides to rent it. Suddenly, only bad things happen to them. The guy lost his job. He never found a job either. They end up in financial ruin. Also related to this department too. But in the past, knives in the kitchen always suddenly fell to the ground in the worst position possible, sometimes almost stabbing your toes. Also, you could spot something like a shadow, moving in the front of the main door, always entering a room. This stopped once we decided to spray a lot of holy water and salt around the house.
I experienced something a couple weeks ago that only lasted a couple seconds, but probably caused me to be the most scared and panicked I've ever been in my life. Let me know if any of you have ever experienced this, or if it's something known. I woke up in the middle of the night. I was still super sleepy, but had to go to the bathroom, so I decided to get out of bed after all. The toilet is just down the hall. I don't turn the lights on because it's my house, and I can just walk to the bathroom blindly. I get to the bathroom, go inside, and close the door. I can't find the light switch. I literally tap around for at least 20 seconds. I'm not scared of the dark in the slightest, never have been, but I get a sort of panic attack. I'm still in a weird state of being half awake. I'm terrible at waking up in the morning and shit, so maybe this has something to do with it. But I panic a little, even though I don't know why, nor can I remember why. Then it happened. I experienced a complete loss of awareness of time and space. I panicked completely. For some reason, I felt like I was in a sort of void, as cliché as it sounds, even though I can feel my arms brushing against a wall. But the scariest thing of all was the lack of awareness of time. I simply had no sense of time. It felt like I would be in this state for all eternity for what I estimate to be a good 10 seconds. That was the most scared I have ever been in my life, without a doubt in my mind. I broke out of it when I hit my hand on the light switch or something. I don't really know what happened, but I had been flailing my arms around the small room and smashed something while also hurting my arm. For some reason, I didn't scream.
I watched this YouTube video today discussing why creepypasta is so lame for the most part, and I have to agree. I'd say a good 95% of creepypasta just sucks. It has zero impact because you cannot believe it. Why not just tell the truth? There are plenty of creepy, weird, hard-to-explain things that have happened in people's real lives without the need for embellishing. Those stories are always the juiciest ones, so this is a thread dedicated to true stories of things that really happened to you. I'll start with my own. I actually posted this story, I think, back in 2014. Anyways, I have no record of it, so I will rewrite it, but here we go. I just recently, not in 2014 time, but now time, got out of the Army. Spent about 10 years as a soldier. I had the good fortune to be in a lot of different units, training environments, and across the globe experiencing all kinds of things. Dismounted reconnaissance and light infantry patrolling were the things that I specialized in most. I had an experience early on in my military career training with a unit that is very, very old school, that really shaped something of a talent that I have, if you want to call it a talent. I was in a patrol base pulling security around the Appalachian Trail area, trying to be as vague as possible. I fell asleep on my watch and we got opened up on this was a training scenario. And it came around that it was my failure, which led to our formation being compromised. I got punished very severely, out in the pitch-black wilderness miles and miles from even the nearest road, no one to report about it, and no one to go to for help. Of course, though it may sound weird, that kind of environment and those types of punishments, the kinds that cannot be ethically done in view of anyone, are effective and have their own merits when used properly. You can legitimately train very good soldiers this way, if you are responsible about it. After that punishment, I had an unerring ability to sense when someone was following us. Even when I was dead asleep from excruciating exhaustion in the dead of the night, I would wake up immediately when someone was around us, tracking us, coming up to our formation, whatever, friendly or not. Pretty useful. I could tell exactly where they were coming from too. I had so many instances where I'd be on the line and grab my buddy and point out into pitch blackness and say, "There, right there, from right there, soon." And after a few minutes, someone would approach from exactly there. I didn't hear anything, smell anything, or see anything consciously. I just knew. I felt it. I was always right about it. I've always guessed that it was something like subconsciously feeling patterned vibrations in the ground, and that translating into a danger signal in my brain. But hey, I don't know. There is only one time that it failed me. It wasn't with the Army, though. I was helping out with some kids camping at a church function, out in the woods of the Carolinas. I knew how to camp and land nav and whatnot, showing the kids how to start a proper fire, make a little shelter, tell stories by the fire. Was a good time. That night we went to sleep, even though we made some shelters. I popped up the big tent, and we all slept in. It was an 8-man tent, but we stuffed 11 teenage boys plus myself in there. Crowded, but not even close to being crammed into the back of an LMTV for a day. After everyone nodded off, I did too. I popped awake less than an hour later. Just fully awake, completely in the zone. I felt it, not imminently. Not maybe a few guys from a cardinal direction. I felt it outside the left wall of the tent, here now. No one has ever gotten that close to me before or since, but here I was. My entire body was flooded with it. Right outside, right now. That's what I felt. I stormed right out of the tent straight to the outside wall. The girls had camped out not too far away from us. Thought maybe it was my female peer coming up to ask me a question, or some local kid trying to pull a prank on us. Regardless, it spooked me so bad I went towards it with some fire in me. But nothing was there. That really got to me. Nothing was there. That little feeling I get is as good as seeing something for me. It means something was there. But there was just nothing out there. Dark woods, whistle of a cold winter wind through the forest, very visible moonlight conditions. Empty, though. I was really strained to see something, anything. I took a knee at the corner of the tent and did the good old stop, look, listen, smell routine for 2 minutes. I hardly moved, hardly breathed. I just let everything in while being very still except the rotation of my head as I scanned the woodline. There was nothing out there. I went back into the tent and laid down, honestly upset that my little feeling got me riled up, kind of a knock to its reliability. I fell asleep. I popped right up again a few minutes later, exactly the same feeling. Outside the tent, right now, left wall. At this point when I went out, I said something first. What? Okay. Somebody got the drop on me and someone also got away, I don't know. All my boys woke up. I was the adult standing in the frame of the opening of the tent, and I had just very loudly barked, "What?" with some threatening vigor into the night. The boys were confused about it. I told them straight up I felt like someone was outside of our tent. I went out and turned the corner and nothing was there again. I told the boys to stay at the mouth of the tent and keep an eye out. I felt deadly serious that someone was at our tent, serious enough to make something out of it. With them up and watching out of the tent, I went into the woodline and searched. I went dead straight for about 200 meters, then dog-legged and dog-legged again just in case someone was watching me move or someone was even following me as I moved. Then I just moved through the woodline as quietly as possible around the whole camp, made the rounds. The boys were all pointing out, telling each other I went this way or that way, all wrong, of course. Eventually, I made the entire circuit. Nobody out there. I came out of the woodline and scared the shit out of the kids as I made it back, haha. I felt kind of dumb. I'm sure those kids thought I had PTSD or something. Anyways, I put them back to sleep after I told them it was just a fox, although I hadn't seen anything. Apart from my own presence, the local nocturnal animals kept about their business, a very typical sign of nothing being off about the environment. So I went to bed. And again, I popped up a few minutes later. I stayed up all night standing and staring at the mouth of the tent, waiting. I knew it was just outside, I could feel it, but there wasn't anything there. But I didn't take any chances. That's the story. Nothing crazy, just something that felt really creepy to me. Definitely my closest to paranormal, if that even exists. It really is the only time I have had that feeling be wrong. It's always worked before and since. I think about it a lot when I go camping. It's never happened like that since, though. If I feel it, it's always something. A person walking down the trail. Some ammo runners came up to drop off a crate of magazines. Private Snuffy going off for a dump.
Scioto County, Portsmouth. All right, you guys want spooky shit, time to tell you about what might as well be dairy from it. I've lived here all my life, and I'm surprised I don't see more about this area. If you don't know much about it, it's pretty much your average Ohio River Valley. Lots of marsh, lots of woods, lots of U.S. hillbillies, lots and lots of pot and meth. Well, there's something strange about this place. Stories from other people in my area, as well as personal experiences. It makes me think there might be something wrong here, or that more people around here are tripping balls. For starters, as far as I know, we have one of the highest number of unsolved murder cases per capita in the United States. At least we used to. Don't know if this changed. But people also just up and go missing out of nowhere. Lots of missing persons reports. Never know why, just know they do. And we've got lizard people in the sewers, or so they say. The closest anyone knows about it is in the late 90s. They completely sealed up the sewer after police found a ripped-apart homeless guy. But anytime I talk to any older cop about it, they sort of tense up and just don't talk about it. Older cop fella I know used to be a sheriff and is now my neighbor. Finally told me more. Apparently some kids, about like 13, 14 he said, had been hanging around in the sewers and found the guy ripped apart, looked like a bear mauling or he'd been thrown into a thresher. But he also said there was something strange about it. The guy's liver was torn out. His entire chest had been pretty much opened up. He looked like he'd been chewed on by something other than rats. And he said he distinctly saw what looked like some sort of white sticky paste by the guy's right knee. The town's only FBI agent, at the time we've gotten 2 more in the last few years, got involved and told them all to try to keep quiet about it. And then the sewers started being bricked up. As for why lizard people? Well, my grandfather told me stories of when one of the bridges here was being built. The big spindly cable bridge. Some of the divers said they saw something looking at them when they passed by one of the sewer drains in the water. They said it looked like a lizard with a rounded face, forward-facing eyes, scaly skin kinda like a carp's, but with little spines on them, and a jutting snout. Said they are bubbles coming from 2 bulbous snorkels like nostrils. They never went by the area again, and he said one guy quit the job altogether. Makes me wonder if there's something underneath the town still, or if it died when they bricked it, or even if it left. Now you've got people here who talk about the grassman, and I'll tell you, I don't think we've got the grassman, considering it's often described as aggressive. My own experience with something like Bigfoot was when I was about 12 in 5th grade, out in McDermott. Me and my mom were visiting her friends. At the time, I didn't understand she was just a stoner and was just hanging out and smoking pot with her old high school buddies. The house was in a dip in a valley, right beside a sloping hill, with a large garden plot that stopped when it reached a barn about 200 feet away. My mom had asked me to go get her purse from the car. It was about 9 outside and pitch black, so her friend, we'll call her Carrie for this, gave me a flashlight, and I went down to go get her purse. I was trying to unlock the car when I heard it. What sounded like soft impacts on the ground, sort of like a poomph. I heard some leaves crackling, so I turned with my flashlight and walked right across the side of the barn. Not even looking or paying attention to me was a massive hairy biped. Black fur, tall and long with thick pillar legs. It looked like the stereotypical Bigfoot. Except for one thing. It was tall enough to reach the top window of the barn with its head. It had to have been at least 14 to 15 feet high. I did smell anything out of the ordinary, something that smelled a lot like cucumbers and deer musk, but that was more later recollections that night. I booked it back into the house fast as I could, started locking windows, doors, shutting curtains, and turning off the lights. I was terrified, more scared then than I had ever been before. Never seen anything like it. Freaked the hell out of my mom and Carrie. I started sobbing and telling them what happened, and they were just wide-eyed in shock. I'm not prone to make stuff up. I'm generally an honest person who doesn't like pulling one over on people or pranking. And they knew this wasn't a prank. Never went back there after that. Now, more than this, we don't see anything like aliens, or at least UFOs, but people often say when they go hunting they see lights in the woods that sort of just show up, float around for about 20 to 12 minutes, and just up and vanish. Could be swamp lights, but a lot of the forest isn't marsh, but thick, loamy soil. Now, this doesn't sound like much, but I have no idea what could cause those. One of the most bizarre things I've ever heard was from one of my grandfather coon hunting buddies, a guy who I actually bought my blue-tick pup off of. He said that in about September of '92, he was out hunting deer, and saw something he'd never seen before. It was a white-tailed buck, all normal, an 8-point rack. Then he saw its neck. He said that on the neck, he swore that he saw a hat that looked like some sort of big, pale, white leech, about a foot long, hanging off it. He aimed up and looked at it through his scope, and he said he saw it wasn't a leech then. It like some sort of lizard, with white, round scales that were like little bubbles all over. A fat, round body and short, thick tail, and with tiny little claws that kept it attached as it bit into the neck. The buck didn't act like anything was off, and just kept eating at the corn that he had put out for deer, turkey, and other animals. This was in his yard, I should mention. He prefers hunting kit in his yard. He took a shot, but missed, and the deer bolted, with the lizard dropping off and running too into the thorny underbrush. Never seen anything like it before, and he wished he'd had gotten the deer so he could have gotten the opportunity to catch it.
The psychological terror of a stranger at the door. I am quick to imagine the worst outcome of a given situation. The chances of something not happening is meaningless if that something can overwhelm my better judgment. It could be the thought of failing a test, losing a game, or being unsuccessful in an argument, but these are not the situations that I find myself in a negative mindset. Unlike the majority that would normally experience such pessimistic, meandering thoughts regarding mundane failures that could occur in the aforementioned examples. My thoughts wander to the darkest cavities of divine will. With that now known and put away, let me explain why I am here tonight on this board. The situations that trouble me most are usually when I am alone at night. When I get into my car at night, I may rush to my parking spot afraid of being chased. When I get inside, I look behind the seats. I fear the unknown, but it presents itself as a human form in my mind. A killer, lunatic, psychopath. It comes to me when I wash my hair in the shower, afraid to close my eyes. When I sit on the couch and all of a sudden feel I need to check behind it. When I look out the window, or just close the curtain altogether. I am expecting it to come after me. It's even in my dreams. My father works second shift and gets home between 12 and 1 a.m. during the week. I keep the door locked, so he knocks and I let him in. But every time I hear the knock, I peek through the window beside the door to make sure it is him. Every single night. It actually terrifies me, until I see that it is him. But tonight something happened. It was 1:15 a.m. and he still hadn't made it home. It was then that the doorbell rang. He never rang the bell, he always knocked. So I became shocked and full of terror as I slowly made my way to the door to look out the window without making my presence known. I moved the curtain away and my father was not there. It was a stranger I had never seen. A large man with sunken eyes and hands in his jacket. I had no idea who it was, but a strange thing happened. I opened the door with no hesitation, no fear, no second guess. It all disappeared. Turns out, he was supposed to give my dad a ride home, but he couldn't find him. So I gave him the number and then he left and brought my dad home later. But the idea that I had no hesitation to open my door to a stranger, even though it has always been my worst nightmare, it's quite disturbing. I don't think I am the only one that this has happened to. I am just as confused as I am disturbed. What happened tonight? What if it was my killer? Is fate so set in motion that I have no choice but to open the door? It's like I check every single night because I know it will happen and am terrified of it, but when the time comes, I have no choice but to let fate take hold of the end of the story, like the hydrophobic who drowns or the claustrophobic who is buried alive. It's inevitable.
I hope that you enjoyed tonight's broadcast. If you enjoyed tonight's story, then please subscribe to the channel as more Greentext will appear daily. A new broadcast will appear when the clock strikes midnight Central Time.